Make sure you put Commissioner Chair, did meeting from back quarter of room.
No, I'm gonna put you weren't here.
I totally missed her. She was so good at hiding in the corner.
Alright, not all the technology is working. Oh well. Oops. Okay, ready? Real quick, everyone here has heard about this strategic management planning program, and many of you have been here for more than 3 of the last 4 presentations that we've given on the stamp, and so I won't belabor the stamp objectives or anything at this point, because we've kind of beat that to death, I think, unless anyone has any questions, in which case this would be a great time to introduce Mary Emmon from the DCED, who is
the substitute teacher today. Your normal policy specialist is off today. She'll be off for another probably week or so. I'm just here today to be a representative for the department, but Terry will always be the one that you will connect with.
Thank you.
Mary Emmon. Thank you. So the main thing I'd like to highlight though about the stamp is that, you know, so many programs are a grant program that doesn't necessarily require a plan, or it's a planning program and then you write a plan that sits on the shelf. And the beautiful thing I find about STAMP is that it's how it says you can have multiple phases in the future, we'll provide funding, but the first step is to get an actionable plan in place. And so over the last 6 months, we have worked on your strategic management plan. So just to recap, there are some milestones. So I think you applied last May actually for the stamp, and then we submitted a application in July to work on your stamp, and then we were actually awarded in October, interviewed in November, did a kickoff in December, and then we really actually hit the books in January, February. So we looked back on your 5 years of financials. We did a quick step 2, which is where we took the your current expenditures, and we basically, it's just a refresher, extrapolated out 5 years what we thought your expenses were going to be, and then this is what we call the crash course budget. We show that over time your expenses are increasing because you're already capped out on your millage. Your revenue is going to remain pretty flat, and so there's this big delta between like what you are currently providing and paying for it and what you're going to be able to pay for in the future, because you're already depleting your reserves significantly. Moving target. Yeah, so the other thing, I mean, I already gave you a little pat on the back, but our job is to kind of find the problems, not necessarily praise you for all the good things going on. And so if this feels a little doom and gloom, it's not because we think you're doing a poor job or something. It's just a matter of, like, you go to the doctor's office and you don't want them necessarily to tell you how awesome these panels look when you have a problem and that's not getting enough attention, right? We had some data limitations, particularly just because you're a small community, and so it's kind of hard to extrapolate a lot when you're not dealing with a lot of big numbers. Again, there's no silver bullets. We also can't predict the future, and so for all I know, COVID, something will happen next year and all of this could be thrown out of the window. And also, general caveat, we're not CPAs. We have an accountant on our team, but she's not a CPA. I feel like we play around in the law a lot, and we do have lawyers that support us and CPAs, but like this report is not like presented from a CPA firm or from a law firm. So, you know, check with your solicitor, check with your CPA, etc. Oh, I already said no silver bullets. All right. I won't bother describing the company that much because I know we've done that before. The 2 of us that worked on this on the most were myself and Lisa, and actually Chelsea really did a stellar job of putting a lot of this together. But when it came to the interviews and such, it was primarily me and Lisa. So Lisa's the accountant, and she was going to be here today, and we had a big legal issue pop up at the city of Du Bois, so it was like, who wants to go present, you or me? So she wasn't able to make it. We had a bunch of people on our team that contributed, so big thanks to them. Why is this not full screen anymore. All right, so when we started off the program, we met with commissioners for a kickoff and recorded a bunch of questions, and then threw in our questions too. Like, so starting out on this, we're doing a program evaluation of your entire county, right? And so we want to answer some questions such as, do I need to do a reassessment? How much do I actually have in savings right now? Is there any way we can increase our taxes, our property values so that we garner more taxes, that kind of thing. And so these were the questions that essentially we asked, and we should have an answer based on what we found for all of those questions. They're kind of speckled throughout here. At the kickoff meeting, we had some priorities that I wanted to run through. So first of all, you asked for a ratio study because, like, question number one, of course, is do I need a reassessment? Most people are either black and white, yes or no. And what we were saying is right from the get-go, we know the answer is probably, but we just don't know to what degree, right? So we did that ratio study, put a lot of people to sleep back in March or whatever that was. Except Jess. Jess was like, "Ooh, this is so fun."
It was really interesting. Statistical analysis. Ooh.
Yep, it was great. So I think we answered that. Zoning, we looked at your zoning and definitely determined that your 45-year-old zoning ordinance is radically out of date and definitely needs to be updated. Financial, there's a bunch of things we'll get into about, which, you know, they're all things that Jess in particular already knows about what needs to happen with the financial situation. Compensation table, I have to admit, we did not really, I would like to make a recommendation for phase 2. I had hoped that we would end up having enough time to really analyze and then come back to you with a proposal on what you should pay people. And that got started, but we just ran out of time with all the other stuff that we ended up doing on the project. Succession planning, we have a couple recommendations related to that. Job descriptions, that was actually what the time-consuming part about doing the compensation analysis is, I believe you gave us the job descriptions you have, but what takes a lot of time is then reading that, scoring it, and then putting it in our matrix. So that kind of goes hand in hand with compensation. Econ dev, man, you got a great guy in Cliff. He's known regionally for all the things.
Yeah.
We all know that you want some grant writing support. That did end up being here as a shared recommendation. We did look a little bit at tourism, recreation kind of things. The bottom line there is you need a brewery, a winery, and a small hotel. So, and then infrastructure, we did a pretty in-depth look at all of your facilities and came up with a capital improvement plan there. And honestly, I don't remember what you wanted us to look into for advocacy for rural representation. I mean, I remember the problem was basically saying, and Mary, I don't know if there's any solutions to this, but like half this county is owned by the state, and so they can't do development. Like they're.
I think it's more than, isn't it more than half?
It's closer to 60%, yeah.
There's a municipality in Butler County that is owned 80% of the borough is owned by a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And they have nowhere to go.
Right. Yeah, and it's not just about the PILTs, right? I think the PILTs are low, but really what it comes down to is even if people wanted to move here and build fantastic stuff, they can't because either the state owns it or it's in floodplain or whatever. So that's
green.
Yeah, clean and green, exactly.
Or it's a hill that's like.
Well, yeah, exactly. The developable property here is like maybe 1%.
I think it's 2%, and it's
Oh,
all, and it's 98, but it's but 98% of that 2% is already developed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's 0.2% that you could actually play with.
Yeah.
0.2 of 400 square miles. Oh boy.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then Cole, we've heard rumblings about the OBG for the delivery board closing around that time. So I'm sure that was part of that. All right. Cognizant that you need to leave in 35 minutes.
Sorry, I gotta go to the next one.
Yeah. So I do want to paint the hard picture real quick. So and most of this I've said before, but I wanted to put it on one single slide. So you know you have population decline, and that stagnation leads to the lack of development and decreased property values. We know that your total assessed values are not increasing, they're very flat. And so they're not keeping up with inflation, and as a consequence, you would normally need to raise your property taxes quite a bit in order to make up for that. But you've been capped out for 18 years. I have no idea if there's any other county in the state. I would be shocked, actually, if there was any other county in the state that didn't increase their property taxes for that many years that wasn't growing. So like a Lancaster County or something, yeah, they might say, ooh, it's been 20 years since we raised taxes. Well, yeah, but your property values are increasing rapidly every year.
And your stock is over there, so you have more houses to tax. Right?
Exactly, right. There's more properties like getting thrown up every day down there. At the same time, you're still being asked to maintain the same level of services, and they don't decrease proportionally. So basically what I'm saying is the number of people in the county is decreasing, but at the same time, your children and youth services and stuff, probation cases and such are actually swelling. And so you might be thinking, well, that means that I can, if my population declines by 20% over the next 20 years, then I should just be able to cut 20% of my workforce or something like that. And that is not the case. In part because of the fact that you just have to have, you can't find the expertise to do everything in one group. Like, it amazes me how many, let's just look at you. You're essentially like the fiscal director, the chief clerk, and all the other things that comes with that, and the elections director and the voter registrar.
And she's our right to know officer.
And yeah, right to know, liquid fuel, like all the things, right? That's an insane amount of stuff to expect one person to know. I'm not saying there's not enough hours in the day to do the work. I'm saying, like, how could you expect any one person to know how to do all of that? Particularly given you've been here, what, 3 years, 4 years?
3 years.
Yeah, so doing a great job, but another example, the elections, or not the elections office, the planning zoning assessment, like that's a lot for one person to know about all the things, right? So anyway, yeah, Cliff is another, like the mensch who knows something about everything. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, you can't just like remove more people, because you can't expect the small number of people that you have to be experts in all of the fields. They do an amazing job, all things considered, but that's kind of where you're at. So at the same time, you've got inflation increasing your costs, stretching your dollar further. There is an aging population, which some consultants might look at that and say, well, that's taxing on your services. That's not actually where I'm going with this. I'm pointing out that your labor force that you have to compete for now is a smaller force, and so now you and the school district and whoever else are kind of competing for the same people. I already said taxable properties decrease while values remain stagnant. You have past balanced budgets, but they haven't completely, at least in years past, you haven't really stuck with the budget. So, and then at the same time, because you might make what, $50,000 or something as commissioners, right? You might go down to Berks County and they make 90, but there it's being spread between 250,000 people, and here it's 4,600. And so proportionally, people are, and I'm not picking on you, I'm just saying, like, the overall overhead of the county government is just gonna be really high because of like that bare service minimum that you need in order to operate a county government. So, some of the research that we saw, not around here, more out west, but I guess just picture this for a second. You've got people moving out, a smaller group of people are trying to support the tax base, and what starts to happen, but somebody says, you know what, it's time to move on. And then it just increases and snowballs, and next thing you know, you've got a ghost town. That's my worry, not this year, not this term, not this decade, but I am worried that long term, if you don't do something to change the narrative, you're gonna have a very, very small group of people that are trying to support government going forward.
It's a legitimate concern.
We won't belabor this stuff. Okay, so, how much time do I have now? 28 minutes. Okay, so we did the financial steps 1 and 2, skipped the emergency, went on to 4, did the management review. Step 5, excuse me, is taking the 168 recommendations that we made, ranging anywhere from adopting Rosenberg's rules of order up to getting a reassessment, right? So anything from this will take 5 minutes to that's going to be $1 million anyway. And so wide range, but that's where we're at. We have this spreadsheet of all of those recommendations, which are divided out by the type that the DCD wants to see, the department that it has to do the recommendation, and then why we recommended it. And so we will give you access to that. And the value there will be, if you want to know, like, all the recommendations that have to do with community and economic development or something, you can just sort it and grab just those. So Excel is best for that. And then the we've taken there's a slight difference in what I did and what staff did. I actually narrowed it down to 5 steps, and the DCD generally likes to see 5 steps anyway. So what you're about to see is pretty much the same thing, but when I give you the Gantt chart, it's going to be narrowed down to 5. So we'll make that adjustment. Is that right? The DCD wants to see the 5. Terry's always said that. I don't know if it's anyway.
To be honest, Terry likes things concise.
Yeah, that's probably why. Yeah. Probably not in the law or something. She's just like, no, it needs to be 5. So I can have 5 on one hand. So anyway, you're about to see 5 steps. Oh, I bet she just wanted the alliteration of 6 steps to success. She didn't have to say it out loud. Let me just launch into those. We've already talked about this. So our goal number 1 would be to invest in the future, and the main recommendations, I mean, the main problem here is you've been tapping your reserves and you have none, right? Or almost none left.
Yeah, I mean, essentially there's reserves left, but they keep using them to balance the budget, and
Right.
then, yeah.
So we would like to see, for a $10 million organization, 1.6 million in reserve based on GASB recommendations.
Right.
And on top of that, you need hundreds of thousands ready to apply for grants as match and stuff.
Right.
So the ultimate recommendation here is build your balances back up to the 2 million range, and then you can be, rather than doing a tax anticipation note or something like that, you can be borrowing internally from your own reserve fund. So that's where we'd love to see you get to. But right now, there's almost no reserves remaining, and you know, God forbid the state holds back the budget or something, and you know. Yeah. Yeah, those of us that went through 2017, that was not fun. Okay, so number 1 recommendation from us is to convert your about 5 mils, I believe, in debt service. That's currently listed as general mills over to special service, which does not have a cap. I'm not saying that you should then turn around and raise your millage by 5 mils, but I am saying you need that headroom. And particularly for Mary's benefit, we went round and round about like what this recommendation should be, because they've been capped at 25 mils since 2004, I think it was. Really long time, right? Haven't raised taxes in that long. And that all happened around the same time as they did this building expansion and some other things that, you know, were essentially they are bonds, there is bond obligation, but rather than designating it as special purpose, they just maxed out their general millage. And so here's what you could do, right? Number 1 is you could get a reassessment, but that's not going to be fast enough, right? You can change your predetermined ratio, but that kicked off a, a fun public, information session that, I still don't think was super clear, on my part, so that's kind of less than an ideal option. And the most kind of palatable option we felt was to recommend that you just convert that debt, which arguably should have been back in 2005-06. Just do that now, but that was a big legal thing, like I didn't know if that was even possible. So we did get a legal opinion that said, yes, it is possible. So that is our recommendation at this point, is convert that debt so that you have some headroom and you can raise taxes. Now, I know that's not a popular thing, but that is gonna be number 2, is raise your property taxes. And I included in the step 2 a recommendation on what that would be. I can't remember off the top of my head what it would be, but it would actually only be for a period of time. The idea being that as long as inflation doesn't get crazier than I anticipated, or the Fed anticipates that it will over the coming few years, when you pay off your debt, your current debt payments, then you would be able to relieve about half of that amount. And so you'd really only be raising your millage a couple for the next couple of years, and then you'd be able to drop it overall down a little bit. So it hurt for a season, but hopefully not for too long.
Can I have one question real quick? Because you had said earlier about the idea of, you were just talking about raising taxes, but also talking about trying to raise property value at the same time. So people's property, and that's what we understand here locally, is we're a place that people want to come to be able to buy luxury places and get out from the hustle and bustle. So that puts us in this space, excuse me, so that we could raise property values. But so for the taxpayers coming in, if they have to pay more taxes, it's going to be based upon possibly reassessment that their property value is going to be going up at the same time.
Right. So first of all, and Cliff, you might know this, I mean, you have alerta in place for commercial but not residential, right?
Correct.
So if your strategy is basically flip, probably, because we already know there's only, what, 0.2% of the place can be redeveloped, or sorry, developed, then you're gonna need to look to redevelop existing infrastructure to increase the value of it, right? So that's a strategy. I mean, that is a strategy, yeah. The question is, how do you measure the viability of that? Because if it's not currently happening, then what levers do you have in order to make that happen? And one might be, IDA has a revolving loan fund or something that goes specifically towards flipping properties or whatever, or you institute alerta, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things are going to be deferring your tax revenues, right? 3, 5, 10 years or whatnot. So that is a good play, and you should you should follow that, but understand that it's not going to be an immediate quick hit, right?
Okay.
I do like that as a strategy, though. Okay. Next, do you know if the DCD did determine whether flyovers are eligible?
I don't know that answer.
I think that, so I was apparently the first consultant to recommend it, and so it had to go up the flagpole. But one of the recommendations that we have is there probably are at least some properties in the county that were not reported. They were built and or improved without any kind of permit or such, and so yeah, some of them are probably nicer camps out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
The idea of doing the pictometry flyover is to pick those up, compare it against your current records, and in instances where they're not getting taxed, you think it's a vacant parcel and you're charging them $100 a year, that finding those generally actually pays for itself the first time, and then they'll try to get you to maintain it over time. It's not going to yield you the same kind of initial, but I mean, just as a matter of equity, there's probably going to be very little pushback compared to doing a reassessment or something, which will first of all cost a lot more, and, you know, just because the boots on the ground and everything, you know, and people don't love you traipsing around on their properties, whereas this would pick it up from the air.
So that's an investment that the county would have to have another firm come in, pay for it to be done, but it's not necessarily reassessment, it's just assessment for what we have.
Correct, it's just an assessment for the things, for the people that are basically skating.
Okay.
And that's not considered spot reassessment.
No. Excuse me. No, it's just like the spot reassessing would be, you know, you intentionally are going out and trying to find somebody that's like, you know, it's your sister's ex-boyfriend has this camp in the woods that you didn't report. When you do a like mass,
If it's a broad scale.
yeah, if it's more than a municipality, then it's just, you're just catching people up that should have filed permits that didn't, right? So again, generally speaking, those pay for themselves. I believe Potter County is doing one next year. And the nice thing about maybe getting in with them would be if they've already got a plane in the air, it's way cheaper to just have them continue to fly their circuit. They're probably flying over you anyway. So.
They're taking off somewhere, not like.
Yeah.
Do you remind me, do you know if they are doing on Potter, like what office that would be through?
We'll,
Probably through Wilhunt.
yeah, I don't know who.
Through their planning office.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it will obviously affect, so the other nice thing about doing LiDAR is that 911 can use it. Like they would insert it into the CAD system so that, you know, they actually have really good 3D modeling of what's going on, and they can help, dispatch can then help. It also helps with GIS mapping and all kinds of things. It helps with tax assessment, for obvious reasons, and then planning as well, because they're usually the ones that are administering saldo and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so having that kind of parcel data overlaid over the 3D models are really helpful. By the way, these things are incredibly accurate. It's amazing to me that it's almost as accurate, if not more accurate, than someone actually going out with a tape measure.
That's what I was wondering too for the tax office, because if it's that accurate.
What is it called again?
Pictometry is the company, but it's a LiDAR.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
LiDAR is just using, I think.
It's a 3D camera.
Yeah, it's like a
basically.
camera unit where it says do spatial awareness.
Okay.
What things are.
It's like sonar, only instead of under the water, it's from above.
Kinda, yeah,
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, that's the way I was always kind of under
Yeah.
the impression.
It gets you the same result, yes.
Essentially.
Through completely different technology.
Different technology, but similar results, yeah.
All right, now I'm at 15 minutes. Let's speed it up. All right, we already talked about a goal of having like a couple million in the bank. Implement the capital improvement plan. You're spending good money maintaining stuff that, you know, I don't want to say you're wasting money, but you know, you're trying to maintain stuff that's old. It's like maintaining a 1995 F-150, you know, unfortunately at some point you're just spending way more money on maintaining the thing than if you just bought a new one, right? And that's definitely true of your HVAC system.
Right, well, and the KISA plan's costing, once I had time to sit down and evaluate it, actually came in, for everything they projected, which included our roof, came in at almost the exact same price as what we were quoted for our roof. So, because we've already sought out grants for that, it makes sense to implement this right away.
Yeah.
Because it's actually cheaper than something we have to do anyways.
Yes, exactly.
And they can't do chargebacks.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
That,
yes.
That's-
no
like
charge,
it's,
you know,
the same
no
price
change
as a
orders.
roof, it includes the roof, and they can't do chargebacks, it's like,
Yeah,
it makes so
It's
much
kind of a
sense.
no-brainer, actually.
The no change order thing is amazing.
Yeah, well, it's an old building, they're gonna find stuff.
I saw them do a project in,
Anyway, so.
it was Columbia County. Get this, and I'm sorry, I'll leave this really, try to make this as brief as
Sorry.
possible. They estimated replacing a slate roof or fixing a slate roof, and then when they were already like mobilized and doing the project, the Historical Society said, no, you can't just replace that with any slate. It has to be slate from the original quarry from
Oh, boy.
1870 or whatever. So they had to eat it They had to reopen a quarry that hadn't been open in 100 years just to make slate for this roof. Yeah, that was an insurance claim. But hey, it didn't hit the county, right? Like, that's
Right.
part of the beauty of
Well,
that
and like,
system.
just the fact that it was the same price as something that we have to do anyways,
Yes.
and we've already put a grant in for, means that it would bring the cost down significantly
Yes.
overall.
Yep. Okay, goal 2. Well, real quick, the problem here is you've got a good system in Encode, Tyler Encode. It's well established, it's a good system, but it wasn't set up properly. And as a consequence, a bunch of you are having to keep different spreadsheets, QuickBooks, etc. A lot of wasted time. I shouldn't say it's, well, yeah, it is wasted time, right? Like,
There's a lot of
yeah.
duplication
Redundant
of.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they gave us adequate training either.
Oh yeah, and that's, look, the other thing about Tyler Tech is their software is some of the best, but it is wonky. Like, you have to know what you're doing. And so, yes, like, high level recommendation here is CFTCD would pay to get you guys trained on how to use it effectively. There, so robust Encode training, restructure the chart of accounts. Honestly, you've got the master here. Like, I realize that we are kind of, understand that to some extent we're coming in and rubber stamping some of the things. Like, we found the exact same things that Jess said, and you really got the perfect person to like see this overhaul happen. So restructure that chart of accounts. We would recommend moving to a priority-based budgeting system, which I'm not the PBB certified one, Lisa is, so I wish you could really speak to all the nuances, but in short, it's really a comprehensive budgeting model where it takes not only your operational stuff that you currently do and pairs it then with the capital, comes up with a cash flow budget, but I think most importantly, unlike zero-based budgeting or any of the other models out there, this one says, what does the community need? And it actually compares it with the other needs. Because right now, I mean, what if let's say the sheriff's office comes to you saying, I need 2 new cars, and CYS comes to you saying, I need 2 new cars, and you only have money to do 1 car, who do you give the 1 car to? Because they can both make compelling cases that they need it, right? And I mean,
Well, CYS is reimbursable, so.
well, all right, so bad example, but my point is you have limited resources, right? And how do you decide between who gets the money, right?
Yeah.
And without doing a PVB kind of model, it's really hard to justify, and that's why people, I think, just resort to, well, it's 2% more than what you had last year. Cost allocation plan, I believe Lisa said that you don't have a capital, cost allocation plan, and you may be leaving money on the table that could be reimbursed through at least CYS, probably the courts, etc. So the state generally prefers Maximus. We put that in there as an example, but candidly, the AOPC is going to want to see that's them.
Right.
Jess is able to get a lot of cool reports out of Encode, but I know that overall people are not able to access like very well where they're at in the year in their budgets. I know the reporting, the commissioners have kind of expressed what goes before the public meeting and such is not adequate for really making good decisions. You can't do this until you fix Encode, right? But Encode has incredible reporting features. So once you get for the next 6 months of training and fixing things, this will be easy, but it's still going to go on there as a recommendation, because I feel for you, because I've been there where I felt like I was flying blind as a commissioner that didn't, unless I dialed in to my Encode system, I really wouldn't know what was going on. So right now you've got an amazing treasurer and an amazing chairperson at the commissioner's office, and so this recommendation is maybe not as needed today, but looking forward, I believe Jess has publicly said she doesn't want to run again.
Nope, I got 130 weeks.
Okay.
I have 31 more paychecks till retirement. Holy cow.
I'll beat it.
Congratulations.
Yes, awesome.
I just know where she's coming from, I get it.
So, in 137 weeks, you said?
130.
130 weeks, the county will likely have an issue, and that you don't have a CPA, or, but yeah, you don't have
a staff accountant.
Yeah, staff accountant like here all the time, helping you through this stuff. And so there's like a donut hole, or there's a gap between the bookkeeping stuff that only you guys are gonna be doing, and like the accounting work, and then the, like you need the CPA, right? And so this position would essentially, whether it's contracted with a company, like ours, or an accounting firm or something, you need somebody that's gonna help, with that like literal accounting stuff. Like your CPA turns around and gives you whatever, your trial balance for the new year. Someone needs to go actually input that, right? And if we would not expect poor Annette to learn yet another thing, right?
Yeah, really.
The other idea here would be contract with, like do a shared service with another county, or for that matter, maybe the borough. I don't know what kind of capabilities the borough has, but, oh, okay, so maybe not the borough, but, but you know what I mean, like, there are plenty of other counties in the state that use Encode, for instance. So it would probably be even minimal training, and most likely they could do a lot of it remote. So I would look at doing some sort of shared service there. 7 minutes. Okay, once you clean all that up, you're gonna be able to get away from all the duplicate. Okay, there's not really formal succession plan. And there's very few, almost every single department we would ask, like, how do you know how to do that? Where is it documented? Do you get hit by a bus? And my favorite answer, which I won't repeat again in the public, or who it was, but one of the department heads, I will never forget this, was like, yeah, if that employee leaves, then I'm gonna hunt them down and kill them. Okay.
Yeah, let's not repeat.
Off the record.
Yeah. We'll not say who, but anyway,
There wasn't anyone in this room.
It was not anyone in this room. So anyway, standard operating procedures are very lacking. It's very common, but particularly as you look towards the millennial generation coming in, turning over faster, then kind of the great tsunami happening where people are retiring, etc. You really need to look to standardizing your operating procedures. So our recommendation there would be creating a government management system. I built one for Warren County, so you can either write to know theirs, or you could look to CiviPro, which is my company's version of it, Trainual, or any other number of systems out there that you could input yourself. But either way, standardize. The kind of Scribe is another really cool thing. So Scribe is a AI-driven thing where basically it runs on your computer, you do your action, it records it, and then writes a policy for you, or a procedure for you. So that's a pretty sweet system that could get you, like, will it be perfect? No, but it might get you 60% of the way there, which is way better than nothing, right? Succession planning related to this is also going to be, you guys actually recommended doing the floater position. So get a couple floater positions that are cross-trained so that, some of these smaller offices can kind of operate if, I don't know, you get COVID and no one else is there to cover, right? And then way in the future, like 2029, which I guess isn't that far away, your comprehensive plan, your regional McKean, Potter, Cameron comp plan will be up. And so we're throwing this in here because I figure at the end of the 5-year stamp, you're gonna wanna do 2 last finale things. One is I would still recommend kicking off reassessment, and so there'll be expenses, legal expenses, especially related to kicking that off, that might be able to be covered by stamp. And 2 would be do the comp plan rewrite. And if it's shared between 3 counties that have a stamp, then it should, first of all, I think the state will look upon that very favorably. Who knows, maybe you wouldn't even have to have like a match at that point, so we'll see.
Any intergovernmental cooperation gets scored higher.
Yeah. and then if we do the compensation plan, then implement that. All right, next, speaking of shared services, this is basically a plea to work together with your neighbors more. But this is probably the most unpopular thing that I could say. But hear me out on it. At least just do me the honor of listening to it real quick. Given that situation that I described earlier of the declining population, and for that matter, the population of this county is smaller than many municipal governments in Pennsylvania. And you're paying consequently for overhead. Your average tax citizen is paying for the overhead of not only the county government, but those municipal governments. And the basic idea here is we were like, you know, what would I do if I could? And we came up with this idea of kick off a home rule study commission. See if you could just consolidate all of the municipalities into one county government, basically. And there are a lot of different ways in which you could slice and dice it. Now, since we came up with that idea on our own, then we also found that it was in your old stamp, and you know, read like Bill Bogart's article in the paper and whatever. So I now know that that is not a novel idea to this community, and that comes with, you know, a lot of, I don't know, preconceived notions and such.
I was gonna say baggage.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
baggage. Yeah,
that
right.
too.
I hear you. I know. Like, I get it. At the same time, it's our objective, like third-party opinion,
Sure.
that could save you a lot of money if it was set up rightly, and it could create a lot of efficiencies. Like, citizens just want to knock on one door to get their answers, and so getting pinged back and forth between local governments and such is generally annoying to them. If you could basically cut their taxes by like making it simpler to operate and at the same time more cost effective, we think that it'd be something worth looking into. And so I saw some numbers that was in one of those studies from years, it wasn't that many years ago, like 7 years ago or something. And look, I don't know, like that those are kind of, there's a lot of assumptions that went behind those numbers.
Yeah.
But how you figure it out is through a home rule charter commission. And so basically it's a relatively simple process to kick off that commission. And at that point, like you're not committing to anything, right? You're just saying, you know what, the consultant said we might be able to save money. Could we get a bunch of volunteers together and ask the DCED to pay a consultant like us to do a study and figure this thing out? How much money could it legitimately save? So then we're not like just fighting over, you know, our local identity or something. Like you're actually able to say, all right, for real, your taxes, Emporium Borough, could actually go down 2 mills. And over the course of 20 years, on average, that means it's gonna save you $4 grand. Whatever, like I don't know, but,
Right.
and that's the group that could then say, well, should we keep it as 3 commissioners? Or, you know, maybe there's 2 municipalities. Maybe there's Emporium Borough and Driftwood Borough, and then the county, you know, but no townships or something. Or maybe they say we should have a 7-person board of commissioners, like whatever. That's that group that can kind of figure it out. But in general, I do want to say here real quick that it's very difficult to be a commissioner because it's not clear whether you're executive or legislative. Well, honestly, you're both. And that leads to sunshine issues and disagreements and such that can be pretty easily solved by simply bifurcating and having a county administrator who has the executive authority that's accountable to the legislative body of commissioners. So just from a kind of like political philosophy standpoint, like I love William Penn, but this is an archaic form of government that just, I don't know, literally goes back 250 years and hasn't, like modern ideas of sunshine law and even just American political philosophy have not modified that much. And so it's a challenge, and that doesn't need to be there, I guess. So anyway, thanks for hearing me out on that.
it's a study. You're not actually,
Right, the study was what.
you're not
is
adhering, you know,
exactly to
you're not,
have
in-
to decide.
Right.
they're not gonna hand you a rule and say you have to do it, it's just a
And
study.
just be to explore that as an option.
Right. And then you can legitimately say, like, no, that won't save any money. Or, I mean, I'm sure it would save something, but I don't know, would it be marginal or not?
Right.
Well, and actually, we're currently managing the city of Du Bois and Sandy and their consolidation. So the other caveat I would say is it will eventually save you money, but at first it will not. Because there's so many legal expenses and such that, and headaches that go into consolidation.
Right.
You would be a lot simpler just because you don't have unions, but it's still, it will still cost more money initially. The idea is this a long-term good investment over the next 20 years? Because you know for the next several, it's not gonna be.
That was the case when they did their study last time. When it was presented, they said exactly that in the short term, it was not gonna save any money, and that kinda killed the whole idea.
Yeah, it never will in the short term, so. And yeah, convincing people to make a long-term investment is always hard, right? They don't feel it immediate, I mean,
Immediate.
yeah, immediate gratification kind of culture. Okay.
Either that or bankrupt.
You're you're over time, sorry. Okay.
Darn it, Ben.
Alright, your saldo and, zoning ordinances really need to be updated. Cliff did a really interesting study in 19, like a kind of informal study, I guess I'd say, on blight. We would recommend expanding on that and doing a legit housing study. That would be a great place to float your idea of like let's build some luxury, kind of living that's not, luxury temporary housing that gets taxed so low. Okay, so somehow, I don't know if it's through a shared service or what, but we're just asking a lot of the assessment zoning office. And so most normally you would see maybe that contracted or a partnership with another government or something like that. It's just again, it's just a lot to see that, to expect of that office, so. All right, and then I lumped these in on my Gantt chart, but in short, there's just a few tech things. So your records management could be improved. I'm sorry about the coughing. When we asked for, whatever ordinances or something, and this is no fault of any one person or anything, it's just how things evolve. Some of the documents were not easily found, or we couldn't find the signed versions, or we asked for something that took, like, I felt so bad sometimes asking for something and it took 45 minutes to find, when I felt like, if I had known how long it would take, I would have been like, never mind, I'll just, so that can be fixed with a good records management system. A community like this could either go with Laserfish's municipal site license, which is pretty affordable. Shameless plug, our company also has a records management system that obviously we like, and it was built for county governments in Pennsylvania, so we are a little more expensive, I think, than Laserfish, but Laserfish is kind of the gold standard. There's a bunch of others in many other counties in the state, probably a third, if not half, use Laserfish, so you'd be in good hands there too. And then digitization of those records for easy access. So that's that recommendation. You really should have an email journaling system that records all the incoming emails and keeps them in record retention, recording record retention policy. Also makes fulfilling right to know requests much easier. But right now, if like your employees deleted their email or something, it's a record that they were able to destroy and you're not gonna be able to get back. And then in addition to the generator that you guys are already going after, like a good battery backup system that could actually cover your
We
entire-
started doing that already.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm gonna show you the Gantt chart very quickly. So just send it to you, but this is what we came up with in terms of a timeline of what we thought was reasonable. So basically, in the next 6 months, tackling a lot of that fiscal management stuff. so the in-code training and so forth. And then, the other thing at the same time is you should be doing the conversion of mills, so that come early next year, you would actually be able to do an increase. Then in the future, you would then do the aerial, LiDAR. And then way out here, years in the future, you would look at doing a reassessment.
So if we convert the millage to debt millage this year, do we have to wait until next year to?
If you got started in the next couple of months, you could, in 2026, you would have the headroom.
What kind of millage increases did you build into the budget though? Cause you did forecasting budgets. So your recommendation must have been built into what you've developed. So what did you propose?
I was trying to remember that. I think it was 2.
Annually?
For the next few years. I'll pull up the graph.
Oh, cause then the bond is paid off at the end of the 2 years and then.
Correct. Yep. Okay, in terms of operations, next year, like your phase 3 application would probably be the time to work on your policy and procedures, and apply for those floater positions. So that you should explain the step down, the 75, 50, 25 new position.
Yes, it's a new position, you've never had before. SNAP will fund it, and it is, kind of a, I used to be a business manager in school district, it's kind of a weaning. We will pay 75% the first year, 50% the next, 25 the third year, so that you have time to build it in, that you will have that as a full-time person the fourth year.
So our recommendation would be either do that collaboratively with another municipal government for a grant writing administrator position and or your floater position, which could be like finance, treasurer, or however you want to divvy it up. Okay, and then comp plan out in the future towards the end of your stamp. This could happen anytime, but the home rule charter for like to kick it off, the study commission doesn't really cost hardly anything to start it. Then ideally you'd probably be hiring a consultant that would come in and run those numbers and use that study commission to kind of go back and forth on models and whatever. So it'd start to cost something, but you could kind of start that anytime. That's, you know, that there's no dependencies here. And then next.
I'll put a shameless plug in that Terry loves to do home rule. So I put her under the last time.
So ask her.
No, I mean, she's really good at it, so.
So the other thing to do in 2026, just because, I mean, it's a relatively high priority, but you don't want to tax the whole system too much or apply for too much from the DCD at the same time, would be doing the saldo update in the zoning. So I think that those have a lot of potential to help streamline operations here, maybe make things more attractive and easy for development, that kind of thing. So that's why it's a relatively high priority, but it's also not like it's a 5-alarm fire, like it's not the highest priority, so. But it's something that's achievable and you could get in 2020, in this fiscal year. So that's why we thought in terms of money, like you wouldn't be going over your 200,000 if you did both of those over the coming 12 months. And then hit some of those bigger hit items in the next fiscal year. So that's the Gantt chart. I think I only had 2 slides left. So punch list, here's what I still need to do for you. We need to get you the 5-year budget and then just give Jess access to the system. There's a couple of, I believe when we were last here, you asked that we like split out treasurer's office separate and whatever, so we'll do that real quick. I thought that I did an organizational chart for you, like a recommended one, and I guess I can't find it if I didn't do it. I thought I remembered doing it, but I can't find the file, so I guess I'm gonna redo it, whatever, yeah. And then the hope would be to have that done in about 3 weeks, send it to the printer, so come, what, end of mid-July, so somewhere in there, you'd actually get the printed bound. At this point, probably 350, 400 page document.
Reading material, bedtime reading material.
Yeah. And again, when we get sent to the printer, we would send you the digital file, but
your RFP said you wanted 5 physical copies, so we'll provide you with 5 physical copies.
Hopefully the trees come from Kennedy County.
Yeah, can you make sure the trees?
Make sure the trees come from
Alright, is there anything you want to add?
Normally, at this point, Terry would be telling you, this is where then Terry steps in and discusses with you what your next steps are, and she will, be the one that will talk with you what is your best next step to go through. She's phenomenal, she will come in, I expect her back in a week or 2, and, she will talk with you about what your next steps are. She will guide you, she knows, she's already, been in contact with Ben. She knows what your best next steps are, and she will make sure that you get your applications in to apply. And I believe you may have a phone meeting maybe scheduled with Bethany?
Yeah, at 3 o'clock.
Okay, so she's actually going to, step in and help you start that. So, you're well on your way. There's some great things in here that you guys can come in to stamp for that will be readily available. So, talk with Bethany. Bethany will get you up and running, and then Terry will be back to get the ball rolling. But there's a lot of stuff in here that I think definitely are great suggestions for all of you. The home rule, I think, is a great suggestion, and shared services, I will preach that forever. When I was a business manager in a school district, there were 12 school districts in the county, and I used to tell them all the time, why are not all 12 school districts hiring a plumber and paying 1/12 of the salary? Why aren't we hiring an HVAC person and paying 1/12 of the salary? We would have the advantage of having that person, and we would have set up a schedule, but we would always have that person. So shared services are fantastic. So, yeah, I'm sure Terry would have loved to have been here, but.
She heard a lot of the recommendations.
She's on house arrest for a week.
That's a good way to put it.
Public?